Hello, everyone. I'm Eric D'Souza, and you are joining me today for another episode of Crime Writers of Canada's podcast, where we discuss crime fiction from authors from coast to coast. Joining me today is an author from my coast. Elizabeth Bass writes under Liz Ireland. How are you today, Liz?
Great. How are you, Eric?
I'm good too. A little bit about you. We are speaking today because you have been nominated for the Best Crime Novella, sponsored by Carrick Publishing, with a prize of $200 for your story, Mrs. Claus and the Candy Corn Caper, um, published by Kensington Press. A little bit about you. Elizabeth Bath, aka Liz Ireland, has been navigating the changing seas of publishing for 30 years, and she has published 50 works of romance, women's fiction, and mystery. As Liz Freeland, she wrote the award-winning Louise Faulk historical mystery series, and as Liz Ireland, she writes the Mrs. Claus Cozy Mysteries, in which recently married April Claus investigates naughty elves and sneaky snowmen in an ultimate cozy village of Christmastown. Originally from the United States, Liz now lives on Vancouver Island in British Columbia. If you don't mind, let's start with time and place, setting, and its
Oh,
importance. You have a unique setting of Christmastown in the North
mhm.
Pole, but I wanted to ask, what is Christmastown like during Halloween?
Well, that's a good question because Halloween is sort of new to Christmastown in my world of Santa Land. It's kind of fun. I never had written a cozy series before, and so I wanted to make and setting it in Santa Land was sort of like you get to create your own like ultimate cozy village and all the things and throw in elements of fantasy stories that you've always admired, like, just the idea, like you can tell I was reading Game of Thrones when I first wrote this, which you don't think Santa Land and Game of Thrones have much in common, but in Santa Land, there's an even stranger place north of Santa Land where all the bad elves are exiled and snow monsters live. And so, it's this sort of the frozen north of of the frozen north. So, um, uh, now I've forgotten the question.
What's Halloween like? So this is the
Oh,
second
okay.
time they're
You're
celebrating
right.
Halloween, right?
So Christmastown is sort of it's like a one industry town, and the industry is Christmas. And then April Claus is from the United States originally, and she hasn't been there long, but she's introduced Halloween to the North Pole, like traditional like Halloween with pumpkins and things, which they don't even grow in the North Pole until they have to make their own greenhouse with pumpkins. So uh the elves are kind of adopting uh this this new holiday with their own traditions. They're kind of integrating their own little stories, scary stories they've had, because they'll hear April talking about Frankenstein and Dracula, and they'll think, wow, that's messed up. Then they'll tell her their own scary story about, snow monsters and demented reindeer gone bad. And so the little elves are running around town dressed as little Frankensteins and little snow monsters. So it's all a mishmash of like, traditional Western scariness and specific Santa land scariness. And, they go all out for everything if there's a holiday. I mean, they just don't do things by halves. And so the whole town is given over to Halloween. It's for a few days because Santa doesn't, it's right before Christmas. So Santa's kind of a little grumpy about devoting a whole week to a different holiday, but he goes along with it. And so there's, orange and black bunting everywhere and spooky stuff, in all the doorways. And they're having a big Halloween carnival festival, and they're building, instead of a, a scary, uh, they're building a giant ice castle as a haunted house. Instead of a haunted house, it's going to be a haunted ice castle, and that's taking up a lot of time because it's a really big thing built of ice blocks. And they're also having a bake off, a Halloween themed bake off. And April chose the theme, which is candy corn, which seems like a really stupid thing to do for a bake off. Like, who bakes with candy corn? But she picked the theme, and now the big trouble is first, the elves didn't really know what candy corn was. And so they're trying to figure that out. And they've put some candy corn on order, but the shipment, after it arrived, got stolen out of the delivery office. And so the story opens with the theft of the candy corn and the coming bake off, which is everyone is hyped up about because everyone gets involved in the bake off because people in Santa Land, they love music, they love Christmas carols, they love baking and candy. And so it's just the biggest deal in town. So um yeah, so there's a lot of rivalry going on between bakers, and one of the rivalries kind of turns sour, and an elf named Wink Jollyflake ends up getting killed by a candy corn cupcake. And that's how the story begins.
That is quite the
A very
imagination,
long
Liz.
answer. Sorry.
That's all right. Long answers make my job easy. Um, Another thing that I know a new reader of yours might find surprising is April Claus. She's
Hmm,
not the typical vision of Mrs. Claus. So
right.
could you tell us a little bit about April?
Well, April Claus, it's sort of, she has a kind of almost like a chicklet kind of background. She was running her own inn on the Oregon coast, and she and it was more like a small inn, like a bed and breakfast. And one day, a handsome bearded stranger came, kind of jolly fellow, although he was kind of not jolly at the time, and came to stay at her inn. And they had a whirlwind courtship. And then after a while, he proposed, and he he admitted that he was the real Santa Claus. And so she had to upend her life. And, that's a life changer, to find out you've fallen in love with Santa Claus. So that's how ends up marrying him. She closes down her inn, except for the summer. They go back in the summers to run the inn. And but for the rest of the year, she's in Santa Land and living in Castle Kringle with her husband and her very strange in-laws. Because even in Santa Land, you can have crazy in-laws to deal with.
Yeah, her mother-in-law seems
Yeah,
more like the traditional Mrs.
yeah,
Claus that people would envision, right?
yeah.
And they
That's
have
the
a
one of the
strained
problems.
relationship.
Yeah, her mother-in-law is like the perfect Mrs. Claus, round and, I wouldn't call her really jolly, happy Mrs. Claus, but she's, you know, got the perfect look, and she's got it, knows how everything should be. And April definitely does not know how everything should be. And it's sort of a fish out of water story. I mean, I wanted to make it sort of a stranger in a strange land kind of story because I named her April. She's like the most unchristmassy name I could think of. And and uh and to have her dealing with, kind of dealing with having to integrate herself into this strange world where she sticks out all the time. She doesn't know the customs. She doesn't even know the vocabulary all the time. She gets things wrong in bizarre ways that sometimes ends up bringing a lot of trouble on herself. But she's always up for trying to fit in.
Um, I counted six. Is that right? Six full-length novels with Mrs.
Yeah,
Claus?
well, I've got the sixth is about to come out, and I've got four novellas in the go. This was actually the first novella I
Yeah.
wrote for the Mrs. Claus series.
So you did something interesting with this because novellas, I guess, have a hard time finding a home. But
Mhm,
you teamed up with two other authors, Charlene O'Connor and Carol J. Perry, and
mhm,
packaged three stories together and
mhm,
published it as the Halloween Cupcake Murder.
mhm.
How did this project come about?
Well, this is something Kensington does pretty regularly. They have
Oh, okay.
these themed anthologies of short stories, and it's a of novellas, and it's a way of just giving authors, bundling authors with other authors so that you might not readers might not have read, and it actually works. A lot of people have found the Mrs. Claus series through this through these anthologies and go on to read the full-length books. And I think that's the goal. And also, cozy readers just love holiday themed books. And so, if you can fit in another holiday story in, yes. And I love writing short fiction anyway, or short novels anyway. So I've never written a short story.
Oh, there's a dare there.
Yeah. I've been
Um,
daring myself for years and it never pans out. I write
I
something and it ends up like the first chapter of a book. Yeah.
So how did these stay as novels then, or no, novella? So you said you've written four. When
Hmm.
was the creative choice to be like, no, like 40,000 words is enough. I don't need to stuff this in with 30,000 more words.
Well, they have a limit. Um, they have, I'm given a limit by the publisher. They want, three short novels and
Mm,
they aren't draconian about it. Like if you go over 30,000 words, they'll, kick you out or anything. But uh, yeah, that's just how I just plan them that way. And usually I really love them because they allow you to focus on certain characters and certain, they aren't quite as busy as the normal books. Because I don't know, books are always kind of a juggling act. And so writing a long 350-page book or 300-page book, or 80,000 words or whatever it is, that's a long time to juggle. It's a long time to keep your plots and your subplots going and your characters stage managed. And so writing a shorter novella, it just feels kind of freeing. You're not so married to subplots, although this one does have a bit of subplot.
mhm,
It's kind of odd that way, and that there is an initial theft that people are trying to solve too, the mystery of too, before the
mhm.
murder happens. So.
I hope that more publishers, so kudos to Kensington, more publishers go this way because young readers, like my teenage boys,
Mm.
they look at like the first thing they look at as a story is the length. And if it's over
Mhm.
100 pages, they're just like, nope, too long. And it's like their generation isn't like that. They're not unique.
Yeah.
So I'm really hoping more novellas come out for
But
them.
don't you sort of like short novellas too? I mean, short novels too?
Personally, some of my favorite were novellas. Like,
Yeah. Because sometimes I think back on those early, like when I was growing up or in the 80s, novels were, I don't know, Lawrence Block novels were 150 pages or something. He got it all in there. But
oh, I mean,
yeah.
uh, 1984, I think was short.
Oh, yeah.
Animal Farm,
Oh,
like
yeah. Yeah.
some of the greatest works, right? Old Man in the
Yeah.
Sea. I can keep on
Yeah.
going, right? The Gambler
Yeah.
by Dostoevsky. Short works used to be perfectly fine, and then we
Yeah.
lately, I guess the publishing industry has just said no, 350 pages is norm. And
Well, I
I've
think they're
read,
trying to give people their money's worth, I
yeah,
guess.
that's probably it, right?
More words for your book dollar, which is nice.
It's true.
But
Like
yeah.
I think older writers prefer the longer books and get the link, but younger
Mhm.
readers, uh,
Mhm.
no, not the ones that I've met. So, um, we've talked a little bit about Christmas themes, but I've been asking a lot of cozy writers this. Um, is there a place in cozies for social issues, or should it just stay as entertainment? And I know
Well,
I haven't seen many in
I
yours yet.
think I think I think the reason we read novels is usually to be entertained. I mean, some people have a different idea of entertainment. I mean, I like a good like suspense, like kind of gory book too. And there's a place for that, and that's kind of weird escapism. It's like being on a roller coaster. You're scared, and then you're able to get off the roller coaster, and nothing's been harmed. You know? It's kind of nice that way. And those can also have, very important themes in them. I'm thinking Val McDermid was one of my first favorite, suspense kind of police procedural kind of book writers. And she was always introducing, important themes into her books. And I think the same can be said for cozies. I mean, they're escapism, but they don't have to be just entirely fluff. I mean, there are important things you can say in a cozy too. And, I try to put some serious things in the book because I think it's impossible to avoid because when you're writing a murder mystery, even if it's in Christmastown and even if it's a dead elf or a melted snowman or whatever, it upsets people. It upsets the order of your world. And and that's what you're trying to solve. Like, what has happened to this town that this has happened, or or to these people? And you have people grieving. And so you have to kind of deal with that, even if it's, the Jolly Flake family or whatever. I mean, it's, you know, they there's sadness and there's something that needs to be fixed in your world. So, I mean, I think there's an inherent kind of seriousness to them too, if you're doing it right. I mean, obviously, you know, that's the ideal.
You're quite the prolific author. I hope you don't mind me saying that. And
Mm.
to other authors who want to write prolifically, what advice would you give them?
PD Workman would like a word.
Yeah, she has you beat, but
Yes.
but you have most other authors
Um,
beat.
I've written over 50 books, but it's been over, like 30 years. So I mean, you do the average, it's not that prolific. But I've been lucky in that I've been consistently published over that time. And I've been able to pivot when I need to. I mean, I've written
Mm,
things that did not work out, and I've thought, well, what other kind of projects do I want to work on that might be interesting to me? So I've always been able to just pivot and find the next thing I want to do. Um, and I can't imagine not doing it, but I think all writers are like that. I've just been very lucky in finding, for one thing, in finding a place that was a good home for me, publishing wise. I've been with the
mhm.
same publisher for 26 years now, with the same editor for 26 years. And so, we kind of know each other. When he pitched, he actually came to me and said, "Do you want to write a Christmas story?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I want to write a Christmas story." I've never done that before. And he said, "Well, I was thinking something Mrs. Claus, uh, she could run a yarn store or a bakery or something." And I said, Mm. Because I'd been writing historical mysteries, and so
Mhm.
I thought, how great just to invent your own world and not have to do research or like worry about, getting the language right. And so I thought, I just jumped on it. I said, no, I want to write about Santa Land. I want to invent this whole world. I want it to be all year Santa Land, not just at Christmas. And so he was up for it because we knew each other well, and he knew like he could kind of see where I wanted to go with it and was on board with it. Even though my agent was, when she heard that I wanted to write a Halloween Christmas story, she was like, "Oh no, what are you doing? What have you two cooked up now?" You know. But
Well,
yeah,
it sounds like your agent was wrong because it looks like a very
well,
successful
it didn't
series.
take her
Looks
long to
fun.
convince her.
I'm glad it
But
happened.
yeah, but I
Um,
think longevity has to do with a lot of luck, a lot of persistence, a lot of just following your interests and knowing like things aren't going to work out all the time and you've got to learn to like drop it and pivot and keep going.
that's great advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
I tell this to everyone. I I don't know who won your category. Um, I could wish, I think, four of you. Uh,
Mhm.
I think four of people were members of Crime Writers of Canada. So I'm always super happy for all of you. Um, there's been a great number of members of Crime Writers of Canada who've been nominated this year, and it's blind judging, so there's no favorites. But I'm rooting for all of you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I'm rooting for everybody too. I've got a lot of people I want to win. So, and I've been watching your interviews and I've, been watching some of the novella interviews and I keep thinking, "Ooh, that sounds like a really good story."
They
Yeah,
are like
so
I'm in
have
a
my
weird
inter my
position.
yeah.
Sorry.
What is that?
I was gonna say I'm in a weird because I'm doing so many interviews right now. I read like the first 4 or 5 chapters of
Hmm.
everyone's book, and then I'm like, nope, I have to talk to them, and then drop it because I have to read the next person's 4 or 5 chapters, and
Hmm.
then I have to. I promised my wife not to go on Amazon and buy them right away, so I have to wait until the awards are out, and then I pick like my favorite like 5 or 6, and I buy those then. So
Yeah.
I can't wait to finish a lot of your guys' novels and novellas.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Liz.
Thank you, Eric.